Hey everyone! In our previous tutorial, we took a few PBR textures and built this Maxwell material for our lightsaber. Now for this tutorial, I thought we could take a step back and set up our image-based environment and tweak our camera settings. So when you just import your model and create a camera and launch your Fire Preview, you're most likely to see something like this. Now this happens when your focus distance is not at the center of your object. To adjust that, select your camera, shift select the object, and press the autofocus button. Okay. Now if you want to completely remove the depth of field from your scene, you can do that by going to Camera Settings and under the Maxwell Render tab, switch the lens type from thin lens to pinhole. This will completely remove any sort of depth of field. So what you see here is the physical sky, which is applied by Maxwell Render by default to every scene you have. Now to change that to the image-based environment, you need to go to Render Settings, Maxwell Render tab, scroll down to Environment section, and here we have Image-based. Activate that, and all light's going to disappear, so basically the physical sky engine is going to be overwritten by the image-based engine. Now in the Background tab, you need to supply the texture. Now, locate the texture. I'll just pick this, the kitchen one. Press OK. And let's do a Fire Preview. Okay. So, as you can see on the preview, my HDR image looks quite dark, and overall it feels like there's not enough light. But as you can see here, the HDR image that I just provided is actually quite bright. What we can do here is we can change our camera settings, because our camera settings by default were designed to work fine with the outdoor scene, which naturally has way more light. To adjust the camera settings, which you can see right here, we can do them right here in the Maxwell Fire Preview, but I find it more convenient to do it in the camera settings. So you go to the camera settings, again back to Maxwell Render tab, and here you have a camera controls. Now in very plain words, think about shutter speed as a motion blur, f-stop is a depth of field, and film ISO is the film grain. All of them are connected, and all of them influence and make the scene darker or lighter, depends on how you tweak them. So it depends whether you're going to have a movable object, or if you're going to use the pinhole lens type or thin lens. You have to tweak those accordingly. Now, in my case, I'm not going to have any movable objects, so the camera nor the object are going to move. So I can easily lower down the shutter speed to something really, really low that will brighten up the scene quite a bit. Okay, so let's do that now. I'll start with the shutter speed. I'll lower it down to something very small, like say 100. You see how the Fire Preview already gave us a little bit lighter result. I think we can put even a lower number, something like 50. We can always adjust that later on if we decide to add more light, so that would compensate that with like increasing the shutter speed, for instance. Now it feels that it's still not enough, because this is supposed to be a little bit lighter, the material, the default material. So instead of just going down with the shutter speed, it feels already quite low. I'll just adjust the film ISO, let's say 200. Okay, maybe 260. Okay, so let's go back to our HDR controls and see if we can tweak that a bit. Now here in the Render Settings and Maxwell Render tab, the Background section, you can actually use Offset U slider to rotate your HDR environment. And let's do that. This is very handy to define where exactly you want your reflections or light sources to be. In my case, I just found that with this HDR image, the window light that comes from the left is actually quite nice. Something like this. Okay, it's gonna act as my key light. Now, if you find that this background of your HDR images a little bit distracting, you can switch it off. Just go to your Background section and Layer State and switch that to off. It will switch off only the background preview. All the settings are going to stay the same. That is pretty much it for this tutorial. Now in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can quickly set up your lights in your scene using a very handy script and prepare your scene for rendering. Okay, I'll see you there. Cheers.